Yeah, I think if we recall from last year's conversation, the digital transformation story within Panasonic is all about changing the narrative, changing the conversations we have with our customers. We've been primarily a device-focused business for many years, so it's about taking that conversation to the next level of seeing how we can bundle software and services on top of some of these devices to bring new value to our customers. The device is essentially one element of that ecosystem, and there's other business needs that need to be solved. That's what IoT and the emerging trends have done in various marketplaces. There's been tremendous amount of disruption where people want to look at data that get captured through these devices in a holistic manner and be able to analyze that and draw some meaningful conclusions that can have an impact on the business. So at a very broader level, it's a change in the narrative. It's about having those conversations, understanding their pain points, and being able to deliver solutions. Now, the second element of the digital transformation for us has been, because of our expertise and experience within a lot of market segments, customers are coming to us outside of the device conversation and really trying to get our guidance and our advice on other new types of business problems that they're seeing. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a strong presence in the law enforcement space, a huge market share from our ruggedized laptops and ruggedized devices point of view. Now, our law enforcement customers are having conversations about their challenges. One, at the top of the list is distracted driving. That causes a lot of pain to them, collisions and potentially impact to the loss of life of officers and things like that. And so we're trying to work with them on solving some of those problems. How do we how do we take ownership of the ecosystem in the car and turn it into more of a smart vehicle where we're managing all aspects and reducing the level of distraction that an officer has today? How do we enhance connectivity of an officer with his or her base through the device that they walk with? So those are some of the kinds of conversations we're having. In our food retail space, the focus has gone away from POS being at the center of the quick service restaurant to multiple entry points into a restaurant. The kiosk. How do we manage the back end of the kitchen? How do we do predictive demand analysis to make sure that we have the right quantity of food cooked at the right time? So these are some game-changing conversations taking place, and Panasonic is well positioned and well situated because of our relationships, because of our existing technology, and the expertise we have in other businesses that we can bring that crosses over across industry boundaries. I'll give you an example of that. The back end of the QSR, a quick service restaurant, is essentially a little manufacturing operation. As you may know, Panasonic has got tremendous knowledge and expertise in the manufacturing space. We're able to bring some of those best practices and help customers develop lean practices and lean operations in the back end of the kitchen. Who could have imagined that we'll be able to translate manufacturing expertise into the kitchen? So some amazing changes from that aspect. But what I just spoke so far is really is one element of digital transformation. When people talk about digital transformation today, they get too caught up in the data. I got to capture data. I got to create this big data in mine, and then figure out how to engines to mine it, and then do something with it. But in a digital transformation, especially a larger hardware-oriented company, the front-end portfolio development is one element. The second element is also an internal digital transformation. Are your internal systems agile enough to cater to the needs of the front lines? For instance, when you're in a device, hardware, or a product-oriented model, your timelines are different. You have you have a focus on product specs, pricing, inventory management, and things like that. You can deliver new products over 6-month, year-long life cycle. But when you're talking about software and services, your business model changes. Most customers want a SaaS model. Most software fixes are required overnight, not in months. So you have to make sure your internal operations are aligned with what you're trying to do on the front lines. If you don't do that, if you don't invest in the right CRM systems, if you don't invest in the right enterprise level IT solutions internally that allow that bring that agility to your model, what we'll see is a gap between what you're trying to deliver on the front end and the internal aspects. The third element is the culture. And culture gets ignored quite a bit because people think that we'll introduce these new products and somehow the entire organization will rally around it. It just doesn't work like that. You have a new generational workforce. You have people then I can speak to our organization who are well versed in the hardware conversation. How do you train them into speaking the new language? So the internal cultural aspects need to be changed as well. So it's a three-pronged approach. You build an external portfolio for your products and services. You drive internal operations, more agile operations. And number three is building a culture, a high-performance culture that aligns, that kind of supports all these changes, both internally and externally. 5 years ago, what we would have done is landed at a customer's location and rolled out our products, a catalog of products. I think, Mr. Customer, this is what you need, and this will fit in here and there, and we're done. I think that's a recipe for disaster, because you're not really delivering a right solution when you do that. You're covering aspects of it. What we do today is really an in-depth conversation around what is the pain point. And many times, customers may not really understand the depth of the pain points that they have. So it requires a full-blown analysis. For instance, in our industrial automation business, what we do is we spend at least 4 to 5 days with our manufacturing customers, trying to do workshops, trying to get a sense of what the pain points are. It's a very common requirement nowadays for full-blown factory-wide or enterprise-wide end-to-end product traceability. They want a routing of the product flow and controls and things like that. In a conversation like that, the easy approach is, here's my system, here's a traceability system, let's figure out how to roll it out. But if you do that, you're going to miss 50 to 60% of the requirements. So what we do is we spend, say, a few days understanding the needs, conducting a workshop, having conversations with multiple individuals. Based on that, we come back and say, here's how we see the problem statement, here's the scope, and then accordingly we'll put a solution in place. Sometimes it's everything comes from us, or sometimes we'll identify partners who can bring their capabilities and we can work together in a collaborative manner. There's a lot of communication that needs to be done. You need to make sure you have honest, open conversations. You can't go up there and throw fluff at people and hope that it sticks. It doesn't stick. You need to stand up there and say, look, this is why we need to change, and this is exactly what we have done. This is why we need to change. If we don't change, here's where we will be 3 to 5 years from now, and here's what it means for your future, our future as an entity. And then here's what we're going to do. It will not have any impact on, we're not here to cut jobs, we're not here driving automation to just reduce costs. And once you start doing things and demonstrating to people that yes, the automation aspect was there to help us improve the business, help us scale our business without incurring costs, or help us respond to market needs, people start buying in. It's if you're just expecting to stand up there and hope that people believe you, I think that's a recipe for disaster, because again, you're not going to get the buy-in, and getting people's buy-in is extremely important. And we have seen, after many conversations and after a demonstration of our intent, of our true intent, we've seen people coming out and giving suggestions and offering suggestions, getting excited, because some of the new tools and technologies that we bring to the table, now guess what? You're learning some new stuff. You're developing your career, you're developing your skill set, which you normally wouldn't. Well, I would add technologies and people. So on the front end, you still have data analytics, AI, and things like that nature, which are really key enablers. But the people element is also going to become important. People who have expertise in certain market segments. Because the challenge with data is, how do you read it? How do you process it? You have generic data scientists can give you a statistical view or a more theoretical view of some things. But if you don't have the business expertise or the knowledge or the industry know-how, you'll be unable to translate that theory into practical best practices. So we're investing a lot in developing specialities in terms of people, talent specialities across market segments that we want to be strong in the coming years. That's one element. The second element from a front line, the first element of our transformation, the portfolio development, is we're also putting a lot of emphasis on AI and ML. We have data acquisition, data management capabilities, but AI and ML is going to be a big focus going forward. And there's, again, it needs to be coupled with industry expertise. Because if you don't couple with industry expertise, you're still going to get a very theoretical model which may not be well received. On an internal side, there's a lot of focus on robotics process automation, RPAs, and building that capability. It's another focus we have within our organization on where do we deploy bots, what's the right model, and what's the right processes where bots would be a good fit. And going back to the third element, it's all about education. It's all about creating market awareness, tools and technologies to people at an individual level to arm them to be more agile and responsive to the new needs.